This is called a ruling pen. It's a drafting tool for drawing thin lines. The idea is that you dip it into ink and then you use it to draw thin lines. But as a watercolor painter, you can use it for watercolor paint and you can use it for masking fluid. And I'm going to show you both of those methods. I have a little bit of watercolor paint mixed up in an extra cap that I had laying around. It really doesn't take that much, but you want something that you can dip this in. You want to dip it in so that the paint comes up to about there, not up into this little wheel mechanism. Sometimes your lines go a lot farther than others. It's not an exact science here. It kind of depends on how much paint gets in there and the viscosity of the paint, whether it's really runny or more thick. There's a lot of variables there, just like when using a paintbrush. What's nice about the ruling pen is that it never gets thick on you like a paintbrush can. When you press down too hard on a paintbrush, it can get wide. Well, this is not going to get very thick. And you can actually adjust the width of the line by adjusting this wheel. You can make it more narrow or you can open it up and make it more wide. And if you kind of flick it up like that, you'll get a thinner line at the end, just like with the paintbrush. I really like this because it gives a very interesting line, and yet it's really easy to do. I like that broken look. I think it looks a little more natural. If you need something to be perfectly straight, you can use a ruler. And where did my ruler go? Here we go. You don't want to just put it down onto the paper because what will happen is some of the paint will seep underneath the ruler. So you may have seen painters do this, use the ruler as a guide where you place one side down on the paper and then you angle the other side up a little bit and then you hold the ruling pen right along the ruler. You can do the same thing with a brush, but with the ruling pen, you know you're going to get a thin line. Just like that. Now that's using watercolor. You can do the same exact thing with masking fluid, but I thought I would show you in watercolor first because it's a lot easier to see than the masking fluid. Now the masking fluid I'm using today is not the traditional artist type of masking fluid. It's called Tear Mender and it's a fabric and leather adhesive. As far as I can tell, it's liquid latex, which is what masking fluid is. So I'm not going to say it's better or worse than masking fluid. It's just something that I've been trying out, and so far it's working just fine. I'm going to put a little bit in this cap, which is a cap from a spray bottle, and it will allow me to see really easily how much masking fluid I'm putting into the ruling pen. You really don't want to get masking fluid up into this area, and I say that from experience. So to apply the masking fluid, just dip it in like that. And then it would be the same thing that you would do. Well, I'll draw some lines here first. The same thing with watercolor. You just draw a line. Now, you'll want to practice and see how your ruling pen is working because sometimes it may need to be adjusted. The other thing you can try doing is watering down your masking fluid just a little bit by adding in a couple sprays of water. You don't want to get it too watery or it won't peel off the paper. Typically when I use masking fluid, I have a spare piece of paper just like this and I practice beforehand and sometimes even in between applying it to the regular painting. I'll work it out on the scrap piece of paper first. Now, trying to do everything that I did with this one. If I need to have a perfectly straight line in masking fluid, I can hold my ruler up The blades of grass are kind of forgiving because usually you want it thicker down at the bottom anyway, and then you can kind of flick it up and get a thinner line at the top. I really have not found a way to do this with a brush, get these consistent thin lines in masking fluid. I can just wipe this off, and I want to open it up a bit and get this a little damp. And that's it. Cleanup is over with, and I just am ready for the next time. Now for the big reveal. I painted watercolor over the top of the masking fluid, and the watercolor paint is dry so that I can take it off. I usually use a paper towel and just rub it off. The advantage to using a paper towel is that you can check it, and if there's paint on it, you know that it's not quite dry. I know a lot of times I use my finger and then I just end up smearing some paint. So by using the towel, you can kind of get a clean spot. I know some people use a rubber cement pickup tool, and I guess if you were using masking fluid for every painting, you might want to get that, but I find that a paper towel works really well. And look at these really thin lines for the tree branch. You can see how thin they are. And like I said, it's really hard to do that with a paintbrush. So that's why I like using the ruling pen if I'm going to apply masking fluid and I want to apply it and have some nice thin lines.